On March 13th or 14th, depending on where you live, we will have a lunar eclipse in Virgo. This is the first of a series of eclipses that will occur in Virgo over the course of the next 2 years. So today I wanted to talk all about this eclipse. First, I wanted to talk about eclipses in general, then go over some key features of this particular lunar eclipse. Then I will give some of the dates for this Virgo eclipse series and also discuss some practices that you can use to sort of support the work that you're doing and the things that you're learning during the time of this lunar eclipse and beyond. So let's get started just by talking about eclipses in general. Eclipses are active and busy times astrologically. So much, actually, I don't really mean astrologically, I mean in the world. So much of astrology is sort of subtle or a bit beneath the surface. We might not be so aware of it, but that isn't the case with eclipses. Even this Venus retrograde that we are in the process of working with right now, it is sort of relational, emotional, and it might feel a bit beneath the surface. But eclipses I've in the past said that they kind of prove astrology because they are especially active times. You will notice that things in your life have shifted from before the eclipse cycle until the end. So a month from now, there will have been some happenings in the last month, not just for us as individuals, but for the collective. It tends to be an especially busy time in the world. There can be changes, a lot of activity. Generally speaking, if you are on the right path, the path that's really meant for you, the things that happen during an eclipse can help to sort of advance you along that path. Just get you a little bit further down the road. Things might come together in a quicker, surprising way, and then you're able to make some progress that you hadn't been able to make before. But sometimes if you're not on the right path or there needs to be a little adjusting, you can have what I feel like I hear referred to all the time as a course correction, right? Sometimes there might be a little adjustment. Something might be eclipsed. Something could leave your life. Something could change in some kind of a way in order to get you back on that right path. I also want to say that knowing that, if something were to come up that sort of diverts you in a way that feels surprising, but you feel like that thing was really meant for you, it could be that what looks like a course correction is actually really a support. We are all being called during this time with the North Node in Pisces and with so much happening in Pisces to kind of relax our feeling of control a little bit and go with the flow. It's very important to know where you want to go and what you want and how you feel. But knowing exactly how to get there, exactly how the process will unfold, that might actually hold us back more than it helps us during a time like this. We're really being called to sort of relax in, especially around an eclipse season, and go with the flow a little bit. So eclipses are a time of a lot of movement, and this particular eclipse is a little bit extra. I want to talk about a few of the key features at this time and of this eclipse now. And I'm going to mark them on my chart as I go. My hope is that this is helpful if you choose to follow along, but that it isn't a hindrance if you kind of just want to listen to the astrology and you're not as interested in looking at the chart. Hopefully you can just listen and that will work for you as well. Okay, I circled a couple different things here that I want to talk about. First of all, this is sort of the eclipse. This is the eclipse itself. We're looking at a chart for the 14th at 8 in the morning Eastern time. I made it so that Aries was in the first house rather, just so it'd be easier to read the chart. But when the moon conjoins with the south node, we have this eclipse. And the south node is all about releasing. It gives us an opportunity to release the negative sides of the Virgo signature. So in order to make way for the more positive sides of the Virgo signature and the more positive sides of the Pisces signature. So we're all sort of working right now, and over the period of these Virgo eclipses, as the South Node works through this sign, we are all working with letting go of perfectionism, letting go of over planning, overdoing, being too hard on ourselves, being too hard on other people. Sometimes Virgo can be accused of being a bit critical, and they really are just trying to help. But that being too hard on self energy can sometimes spill over onto others. But when we release that perfectionism, we all have these tendencies within ourselves in some way or another. Maybe it's to overplan. Maybe it's just to overdo, to overwork. But that's not the way really to work with this eclipse or this eclipse series. It's to put that down a little bit and to lean into the more positive sides of the signature, because when we put that down in Virgo, what emerges instead is the more positive sides of the signature, which are connection with others from a place of true authenticity, of truly wanting to serve, truly wanting to help, not being critical, just feeling connected and wanting to help in a very practical way. Virgo can be sort of very supportive on a practical level. You know, some other signs might provide more emotional support here and there, but Virgo provides that practical support. And so there's an element of that happening right now with this eclipse, with the South Node in Virgo. And it is good to know where it's falling in your chart. If you have any planets or points here, if you know your rising sign, check out your horoscope on my channel. I go into more detail about it for each rising sign in those horoscopes as well. Okay, but let's talk about some of the other features that are happening at the time of this eclipse. The first one I want to talk about is this Mercury-Venus situation. So Venus is currently retrograde in Aries, and Mercury is direct in Aries. And Mercury is about to go retrograde on the 15th, and they will both be retrograde together. So at that time, Mercury will back up and will meet up with Venus again, as it just did a couple of days ago. Basically, Venus and Mercury are in this little dance right now. They're exchanging information. The way that I've been thinking about it is, well, first of all, just information coming in. But it's also sort of thinking about our feelings and feeling about our thoughts, if that makes sense. I think to some extent we're learning what this Venus retrograde is all about during this time. The Mercury conjunction here and Mercury starting to work through this house and sign as well can be bringing more information to the surface about what is really a deep relational, emotional, subconscious process in some ways. But when Mercury moves through, suddenly it feels more obvious, it feels more overt. And yeah, we might find ourselves having a different we're able to tap into our feelings in a different way, in a way where we can intellectualize them, we can understand them, we can think about our feelings in a way that maybe normally we can't. We can put words to it, not necessarily with others, but for ourselves. That's that sort of emotional information coming in. So I just think that little dance that they're doing right now is so interesting right at the time of this eclipse. And this eclipse is ruled by Mercury. So this Mercury is extra important and active right now, for sure. Okay, another aspect that I want to mention that is really important in this chart is the Sun-Saturn conjunction, which is happening right now as well. It's starting to break up by the time of this eclipse. If you're watching this when I'm recording this on the 12th, it's really, really active right now on the 12th. This is adding a depth, a seriousness, an emotional depth, a maturity to the whole situation. It's almost adding like a heaviness or a weight, a profoundness. Some people are referring to it as like a karmic thing or something like that. I don't really see it that way. I feel like the nodes are more about karma and what's meant for us and all of that. But I do think that Saturn can sometimes represent things that are very long standing. So here we are sort of putting down perfectionism, releasing the need to overplan and overdo, learning to go with the flow a little bit more and serve from a place of wanting to help on a practical level, not being hard on ourselves, not being hard on others, not needing to control the whole path, having our mindset on the goals that we want and where we're trying to go, but not needing to control every aspect of the journey because we understand that that's foolish, that there are too many other pieces in play for us to do that. And we can release control a little bit in order to really find the right steps to get us where we're trying to go. We also might find ourselves having a lot of information about our feelings coming up during this time. Wherever this Venus retrograde is working with you in terms of relationships, you might be understanding more about this story now. This is ongoing, but there's something about relationships or finances or creativity, aesthetics, any or all of those Venus themes that are sort of coming to the surface right now to be worked with, not just on a relational level, but on an intellectual level. We're getting that mercurial information about it. And things are a bit deep. Things are a bit serious, a bit heavy. We are bringing emotional maturity and depth to our interactions, to the way we work with ourselves and the way we work with others. So one final thing that I want to mention here in this chart, and I'm actually going to take away some of the things that we've already talked about because they're sort of in the way. I just want to mention also, because you can't help but notice it when you're looking at this chart, all of these planets in Pisces and Aries, right? It's such an active part of the sky right now. And this is an ongoing situation. This is going to be the case for quite a while. And a big way to think about it might be to think about that we're in a time right now where there are a lot of beginnings and a lot of endings. But there really is more to it than that. There's a way in which we're going back and forth across this pivotal point in the zodiac between the last sign and the first sign. We're sort of going after what we want in Aries and then dipping back into the collective, back into our dreams, back into surrender to find more compassion, more connection before going back into Aries again and taking more action before dipping back into Pisces and going back into dreamland. There's a whole lot here that unfolds over the course of the next 18 months, roughly the same timeline that we're working with, maybe 2 years, roughly the same timeline that we're working with this South Node in Virgo, because this North Node in Pisces is a part of this whole party. There's just a lot happening here. It's like there's the leadership of Aries, but then there's the deep listening of Pisces. And there's sort of a process unfolding where we go into that leadership mode, we go into moving things forward, active, making things happen mode, and then we sort of step back and we listen again. We listen to others and what they want. We listen to our instincts, which means listening to what we want, listening to what lights us up and what turns us off and makes us want to go in the other direction, you know? And then we go back into Aries and we take leadership again. We take action. We feel motivated. We allow ourselves to be our full, unique selves. So there's so much happening in the sky at this time. And I want to talk briefly about the dates for the upcoming Virgo eclipses. And just to say this, it can be a very interesting practice to keep a journal. We are at the first Virgo eclipse, okay? This is the very first Virgo eclipse. This I think I might actually put on our chart. I might type these in for us here. Is that just going to hold us back? I don't know. Let's try it. Right, we have our first one here on March 13th or 14th, depending on where you live in the world, 2025. And it's a lunar at 24 degrees. And I need a label so that we can see it. So this is the very first, eclipse. You know what? I'm not going to bother with this because this is really taking too long. I'm just going to read it to you. But this is the first of 4 eclipses that are occurring in, I am making a point here that I feel like is important. This is the first of 4 eclipses that will occur in Virgo. So it's a great time to start paying attention to what is happening at this time in your life, especially if you know the house that it's falling in. Again, check the horoscopes on my channel if you know your rising sign, or if you know planets that you have in Virgo or that are being affected by this eclipse. So keeping a journal about what comes up for you around those life areas around the time of this eclipse, maybe from a week before to 2 weeks after, just paying attention to anything that comes up. Then on September 21st, 2025, we will have a solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Virgo. So September 21st, 2025. We will have that solar eclipse. Now I do want to put it again. No. I'm back and forth. That's a very powerful eclipse. And it's the only solar eclipse. The other 2 are also lunars. We have another lunar eclipse on March 3rd, 2026 at 13 degrees of Virgo. And then we have our final one in really quite a while from now, in February, on February 20th of 2027, there'll be a lunar eclipse at 2 degrees of Virgo. So paying attention to what changes over the course of that time could be a really, really interesting practice and could help you work with this eclipse series. And it's a real opportunity because we're at the beginning of it. I'm going to link to some other videos here at the end that give a lot more information about this time period astrologically. It is a very interesting time period astrologically. If you enjoyed this video, I really appreciate you giving it a like. Please check out my channel for more videos like this and have a great day. Enjoy this eclipse. I'll be back tomorrow.